Okay, good morning. So we're working through Siman Shin Chof Aleph, the halachas of Losh and Teichen. Today we're going to discuss a bit more about making salads on Shabbos. And for example, if you've got a grated carrot salad, are you allowed to add stuff, mayonnaise and things like that, or lemon juice and things like that to make it to mix it together? And more about egg salad. So let's take a look at. We're up to Siman Tes Vov. Chardal shaloshay me'erev Shabbos. So mustard that was mixed together before Shabbos. Lemoch yochel arva. You can mix it further on Shabbos itself. Hein biyad, hein bekli. Whether you use your hand or a kli. V'noisim l'seichai dvash. You can add honey. V'lo yitref l'arva bekach. The Mishnah Berurah is going to change that to bekayach. You shouldn't do it vigorously. Ela ma'arva ma'at ma'at. You do it gently. Says the Mishnah Berurah. So you can mix in water or wine to this mustard concoction. Even if you didn't actually add any liquid or water before Shabbos, it just sort of became moist from its own moisture. Still, on Shabbos you're allowed to add a little bit more mashka to it, because just according to this opinion, we said yesterday there are two opinions in the Gemara whether lisha is from the point when you simply add the water to the flour or when you actually knead it together. So according to this opinion, it's the latter, it's when you actually knead it together. Therefore, adding water to the dry parts is not really a problem of lisha, and therefore if there was already water in this thing beforehand and you're adding more water, there's certainly no problem. And that which we allow to mix it either with your hand or kli, ein gil bazeh, that's not really called kneading it. Mishum de derech hagibul bechardel, because the way of gibul, of mixing mustard seeds, v'chein b'shachalaim, which I think is cress, v'shum and garlic, who alidei trifa, is through some form of mixing. Dahainu shema'arev b'koyach, you mix it very vigorously. V'kan hu ma'arev b'nachas, and here you're mixing it very gently. V'zeu shesim ma'arev ma'at ma'at, and that's what it means when it says you mix it ma'at ma'at. B'kach tzorich loyma b'koyach, like I said. Okay, good. Tesayin. Shachalaim. How do you translate shachalaim? Is that an Ivrit word? Because he says here, Pirush Shachalaim Ba'arvi Taka L'Shar Belaz Krishin. I think always when it comes up in the Gemara, I think we translate it as cress. Okay, so Shachalaim is some form of cress, something like that. Shedachon Me'erev Shabbos, you crushed it before Shabbos. L'machar on Shabbos Noisin Yaim V'chometz, you can add wine and vinegar. V'lo Yitrof Ele Ma'arev, and you shouldn't beat it. Ele Ma'arev, you can just mix it. V'chein Shum Shedachon Me'erev Shabbos, so too garlic that was crushed before Shabbos, l'machar noisin pul v'grisin. On Shabbos itself, you can add beans and barley. V'lo yitref el ma'arev. You mustn't again beat it. El ma'arev, just you mix it up. V'hagav v'yesh omrim d'lo ya'arev b'kaf ela biyad. You don't use a kli to do it. You just use your hands. That was one of the shinuim we spoke about yesterday. V'yesh omrim. And there are those who say that which were allowed to add liquid to the mustard seed, that's only if you did it before Shabbos. But on Shabbos you can't add any liquid to mustard or any other thing else. It's like crushed spices and things like that. Mishum losh. So that's the point. That's what I was saying before. Do you remember we had in the Gemara yesterday that there are two possibilities of when you're over the issa of lisha. One is when you merely add the water to the flour, and one is at a later stage when you actually knead it together. So this yesh omrim is going on the former stage. That when it says v'yesh omrim da'od shari la'arev mashka b'chardel is dafka shenosnu b'yom, when you added the water before Shabbos, because you can't add water to the flour. That's already considered lisha, even if you haven't mixed it. Okay, says the Ramah. So you need to do a shinui. So therefore, what's the shinui? If you put the food first, and then afterwards you add the vinegar or the wine, and then you mix it with your finger to have that's okay. To have a shinui, because that's the shinui like we had yesterday with shasisa. V'chein noagin lahati al yedei shinui, and therefore we are matzeh, when the minig is to be matzeh with a shinui, u'makom shadar kolasis kach b'chol, yitzim b'Shabbos ha'chometz tchil v'akach ha'oichel. And if during the week you do it the other way around, then you just do the reverse on Shabbos, you put the chometz in first, and then you put the oichel. Okay, let's do the Mishnah Berurah, and then we'll discuss some practicalities. Sifkat and Samach, no sin yain, v'lo yitrif. Gam kein rotzelo, b'koyach, again over here, it should say not b'kaf, but b'koyach. V'atam hakol kanal, like we've explained above. V'chein le'inyan shum, and so too not only with mustard, but also with garlic. Of a Rambam kosov, shum sheriskei, lo yishchek. If you've got crushed garlic, lo yishchek, you shouldn't smear it, I think. Or that's when it's not fully crushed. Or that we're answering the lisha type of activity because of the beans and the barley that are mixed in it. Okay, tomorrow you can add, on Shabbos in other words, you can add beans and barley. Of a Rambam is a nice in the teich pull grease, and you can add in pull and grease in ein sham. V'imhem chamim, and if they are warm, ein le'el b'siman shenuches if you v'yutes Mishnah Berurah sham, because there's a shaila of bishul possibly. V'yesh omrim. Now, koi gamal sif tesvav. This yesh omrim is also going on the previous sif, i.e. the chardal. V'davka k'shniz hamashka b'Shabbos. And the issue is when you add the liquid on Shabbos itself. But if you add the liquid before Shabbos, mutzah la'arev b'kaf ma'at ma'at after de'ezu. But if you add the water before Shabbos, then just stirring it, or mixing it a little bit gently with a spoon, would be allowed. Ela biyad, either you do it with a shinah by using your hand, or you sort of just take the bowl and shake it around. This yesh omrim, which says that you can't pour the liquid onto the beans even on Shabbos, is not just the mustard. It's also going on the ala shachalaim, not only on the mustard, but also on the cress and the garlic, the kemach koli, and the roasted flour, haniska le'el b'sif yudalad, which we spoke about back then. V'atam d'svir lehu, the nesinas hamashka gufu zeh b'chlal gibel, because this opinion is that merely adding water to the mixture is gibel. The kneading. And therefore the only het would be if you add the water before Shabbos. And therefore it's considered kneaded already. And therefore it's considered already mixed. And then adding a bit more water is not a problem. As long as you do it with some sort of shinui. You do it gently as opposed to vigorously. And for those things, or for those things that you don't need to do it b'koyach, or if you need to do it b'koyach, you just use your hand as opposed to a kli. You need to do some form of shinui. Okay, the dafka you mixed it, you added the water, the liquid, before Shabbos. If you added only a little bit of liquid before Shabbos, then everyone would allow you to add more liquid, but not just a few drops. Because otherwise it's not considered properly kneaded. Mishum losh, samachvav, says the Mishnah Berurah. Now this is a problem. When is it a problem to add the liquid to the solid, to the flour? When you're going to create a belila ava, which means a solid, like a dough type of mixture. Ava belila raka, when it's more of a liquidy type, a flowing type, lo shaykh bezel lisha, then you haven't got a concern of lisha. But you've got to do some form of shinu, like we spoke about yesterday. One shinu would be that you reverse the sequence, that you put the food first and then you add the avachach mashke. Again, that would be okay if it was a bli l'raka. Like we desham hitiru dafka baraka v'chanal, because that we allowed only with the bli l'raka, not with the bli l'ava. And therefore adding it with the bli l'raka, we're not worried about that it's got to be samach l'suda. V'chein nagim hainu v'chardal v'shum, when you've got mustard seeds and garlic, When you've got them very finely cut, or that you do a shinu. Or makom shedarkei. What's that going on? Samaches. Yeah, it's the end of the Ramah. Or makom shedarkei lasas kein bechol. You just reverse the sequence. Valkein im shachach lishbei chometz be'erev Shabbos l'soich achrein. If you forgot to add some vinegar into the chrein, tzorich sheyaseh b'Shabbos b'li l'raka. To do so, you need to make a liquidy, flowing type of mixture. For noisen chometz, the way you do it is you add the chometz. Va'achach achrein, you've got the mix, the beets, the shredded, what is it? Cabbage? No, how do you make chrein? Chaim? Chrein is horseradish. Yeah. So you've got the grated chrein, you've got the grated horseradish. You add the chometz first, and then you add it, which is the reverse of what you normally do. Shaloi kaderech she'esim b'chol. V'yechiz b'kli atzma v'yananes, and take the kli and then you shake it around. Of v'yerek hanikra salatin, which is lettuce. Ein ledakdik b'chol zeh. You're not worried about adding liquid to this, like a salad dressing. Given she'ein chaytchin dak, because the pieces of lettuce are not so tiny that it's going to become like a mixture. But if you were to cut cucumbers or radish in a very fine way, and then you were to add some vinegar or some other liquid to them, and then mix it up, you've got to be careful not to do it vigorously with a spoon, because it could come into like a mixture. Or you just shake around the kli. And it's good to make a second shinui, i.e., you add the chometz first, and then you add the very finely diced vegetables to it. Okay, take a look. Let's just stop there for a second. Take a look at 112. This is the practical applications of all of this. So a few interesting points. Let's work through it. V'chein le'inyan salat gezer ha'osu mechatichas ktanas. Imagine you've got a carrot salad. So you've got very fine pieces of, small pieces of carrots, shredded. Das hagonim nism karelitz. She'ein la'arvis chatichas ha'gezer imitz limoin v'chadomer. To add lemon juice and other things, other liquids, to the carrots which are shredded is a problem. Elem kein yeshane seidan asina v'yarv b'shesiv arv. You need two shinuyim. Number one, you reverse the sequence. So put the liquid, the lemon juice and other things in the bowl, and then add your carrots. And you need shesiv arv, which means you do crisscross. Yeah, you do it like that, and then you take out the spoon, do it the other way, and not mixing it the way you would normally mix it. So two shinuyim. For legabe salat, anyone knows what that stands for? Yeah, good. Salat jirakas sheretz loses by mayonnaise. So this is a very motzu shaila. Think about it. You've got little pieces of potato, and you want to add mayonnaise to it. You're going to end up with a sort of a solid, non-flowing mixture. So dai tasham there he says shem chatichas hasalat hen ktanis. If the pieces of potato are very small, yesh b'zem mishum lisha. You've got a good old lisha problem. Ve'ein loses bohen mayonnaise ela alidei hashinu hanal. And therefore, the only way to do it is to do the shinui. So, in other words, he said, even though we said yesterday, not like that, there seems to be machlokes on this. He says that you should take the mayonnaise, put it in the bowl, then add the small pieces of potato, and then do it crisscross. That's how you can make your potato salad on Shabbos.
If you already had, let's go to egg salad, whatever. If you had it with the mayonnaise before Shabbos, are you allowed to add more?
So we're going to come to that. I'm pretty sure he speaks about exactly that point. But either way, the answer would be yeah. And then do a crisscross, yeah. For Haisif, Shema Chatichas Gedolas. Now this is interesting. But if, however, the pieces of potato or something else in that salad are larger, let's say the carrots or the potatoes he's talking about, they're bigger. Dahainu Shekol Achas Mehen Nikeres La'atzmo. That each one is like a chunky piece and it's sort of distinguishable individually. Ein B'zeh Mishum Lisha. Then you haven't got a problem. Because mayonnaise, and you can add mayonnaise to the chunkier potato salad. And so too, if you imagine you've got bigger pieces of fruit, larger pieces of fruit, and you want to add yogurt or cream or something like that, why? The whole problem of lisha is when you're taking a mix and you're forming it into one mass. So if you've got very small pieces of potato or carrots, and by adding the liquid you're forming into one mass, you've got a problem. But if the pieces are still independent, you've got large chunky pieces of potato or fruit or whatever, then you haven't got a problem. You're worried that maybe the big chunky pieces of potato are going to stick together or the fruit or whatever it is. Then we're not worried about that. In botzel, kashehem murav b'shemen. Now your egg salad, you've got egg and onion, you've got oil or whatever. Again, you do the oil or the mayonnaise first. And then you add the egg and the onion. And again, mix it with a crisscross way. Okay, so he goes on. There's more of an arichas, but that's probably good. Okay, let's just finish off the Mishnah Berurah. So we're on the second wide line. On the just after it says 112. Pesach b'Shabbos. So again, quite an interesting shayla that always comes up when Pesach falls on Shabbos. So you should really make the charosis before Yontov, but you forgot. And let's say it's like it was this year, where Shabbos was Erev Pesach, and you forgot to make the charosis beforehand. So what do you do? According to the first opinion, you're okay to add liquid to the ingredients, the apples and the walnuts and whatever else you got in there. And mix it with your hands, with your fingers, as opposed to with a spoon. Also, according to the opinion which says even that is also, you should make it a bit liquidy. That's the solution. So belila rabka, remember, is a derabon and not a deraisa, and you use a shinu there, and therefore that overcomes that problem. Also, litref baits in bekara. Now, here's an interesting. What about mixing an egg? So, say for example, for those chazonim out there, they like having a raw egg. But what if you don't want to just drink it raw? You want to sort of mix it first. Or some people have when they drink borscht, with the beetroot soup, and they add a raw egg into it. You seen that ever? That's what he says. Okay, you can learn a whole bunch of cooking from this. So also literally baits in the car. You can't. It's also to whip an egg, to stir vigorously an egg in a bowl. Here the issue is maras ayin. Why? You go into a kitchen, you see a guy whipping an egg. It looks like he's about to make an omelette, right? So you see that on Shabbos, that looks a little bit suspicious that he might be doing bishul. If, however, the eggs were already whisked before Shabbos, you would be allowed to add it to borscht. How does he translate borscht? Chamitza. Okay, I think borscht is borscht, right? The beetroot soup. But klishni, in a klisheni, legavein. I think that means to dilute it or to flavor it. Very interesting. If the borscht was very sort of strong and vinegary, because remember, egg is a kali habishol, and if you've got a lot of vinegar in it, then it could be that it's so spicy that is actually going to cook it. Okay, so the kids, what emerges, we'll leave it there. But what emerges from today is actually important in terms of making salads. If it's remember we've got three. So we've got blila ava, blila raka, and something which is very liquidy. Blila ava is a deraisa. Blila raka is the more flowing type of mixture, and the very liquidy one like Nesquik and things like that is mutzlach atchila. But what he's saying over here is when you make the salads that we're talking about, the carrot salad, potato salad, if they're very small, thin pieces, you need two shinuyim. Number one, you add the liquid first, and then you add the pieces of vegetable. And second of all, you do crisscross. You take the spoon that way and then that way, etc. And if it is large, chunkier pieces of potato or carrots even, then there's no concern, because that's not considered a mix. You're not mixing small pieces to form one mass. They're independently distinguished, and therefore it's not a problem. And even though they may stick together, they're still considered separate individual pieces. Say that.